What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Welcome back to another episode of the Kevin Moore Show. Now, if you want to stay up to date with all my latest videos, just click that subscribe button below, as it really helps to support the show. If you're new to the show, I interview guests from a spiritual perspective, covering mainstream and alternative subjects and much more. Now, on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, L.A. Marzulli. Now, L.A. is an author, lecturer, and filmmaker, and he has penned 8 books, including the Nephilim Trilogy. He has taken on the trail of the Nephilim and created a film series that continues his research with interviews from people in their specific field of knowledge. L.A. Marzulli, welcome to the show.
Kevin, always a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on the show again.
Yeah, now you've been on, I believe, at least 2 times. So what I'm going to do is in the description below, I'm going to link your previous interviews in there. And anything that we discuss right now, whether we're just, movies or, whatever comes up in this conversation, all the links are in the description. And everything's obviously available on your website as well, Marzulli. Your website is?
lamarzulli.net.
Okay. Now, let's just start just a real brief recap if people have not come across your work before. So if you were to sum up what you're doing right now, what would that be?
Well, I've written 13 books, specifically targeting the UFO phenomenon and the Nephilim. So I believe that there's a connection between the two of them. The latest series has 7 films in it, called On the Trail of the Nephilim. The Watchmen Chronicles has 3 films in that series, Fatima 1, Fatima 2, and the newest release, UFO Disclosure, The Coming Great Deception, and the Luciferian Endgame. So I'm a busy guy. I do a daily show every single day, Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural Report, on our YouTube channel, L.A. Marzulli. We've got a variety of guests, and we talk about politics, prophecy, and the supernatural. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. And how long ago did you start this journey? So actually, let me scrap that question. I don't want to include that. Come on, so I can do this because I'm pre-recorded. So what started you on the journey then? There must have been something, because I think. Now, I say I'm thinking. Are you a born again Christian, or were you a Christian? You are.
Yes.
Yes. So what book was it that you read that actually took you on this journey? And were you a Christian when you read that book, or you tell us the story?
Well, I was immersed in the New Age from the time I was 13 to basically 30. So you've got a window, a block of time in my formative years where I'm reading like Uspensky, Secrets of the Great Pyramid, Peter Tompkins. I'll never forget when Von Daniken came out with Chariots of the Gods. Wow, what a great book. I was also heavily into Eastern mysticism, Carlos Castaneda, spirit guides. I was with a guru for 3 years, and that's how I got over to the UK for the first time. And all this went on till about 27, 20, actually, about 25. Between 25 and 26, 27, I said, I'm done. I don't want anything to do with anything. Just leave me alone. I'm tired of looking. I don't believe in anything anymore. That maybe there is no God. Who knows, right? I knew there was stuff going on supernaturally because I had experienced it, but I was burned out. So at the ripe age of 30, I'm reading some books by Taylor Caldwell, and the one that clinched it was a book by Dave Hunt called, I believe it's The Cult Explosion. And at the end of the book is a little prayer to dedicate your life to Jesus. Now, I was raised Catholic, but there was nothing there. And I just said, okay, I've tried everything else pretty much. And if you're real, come into my life and change it. I mean, I gave a verbal invitation, and he took me up on that. And I became born again and spirit filled at the ripe age of 30. That's now 41 years ago. I'll be 71 this year, hard to believe. And that started me on the quest that I'm on now. That changed my worldview, changed my paradigm. When I was 40, I came on a book. It was called The Omega Conspiracy by Dr. I.D.E. Thomas. That book is pivotal and introduced me to the Nephilim, to the UFO phenomenon. And so everything I had studied before I was a Christian came into focus once again, except I realized that I had answers. I've been on both sides of the aisle. So I really bring a very unique perspective. I've been in the New Age. I had spirit guides. My third eye was open. I mean, I went through all that. And then I became a born-again, spirit-filled Christian. There is a huge difference. And when you say those terms, born-again, spirit-filled Christian, people have no idea what you're talking about. Basically, the cats are fighting. Basically, the spirit of a living God indwells you. And that's just not metaphorical. That's real. And that spirit, the Holy Ghost, begins to guide us in everything. And then when we read the written word, that changes our thinking. So it's an ongoing experience. It's now been 41 years, and it's still, in fact, it's stronger now than it's ever been. There's some things which I won't get into dynamically, which are just blowing me away. So anyway, that book, The Omega Conspiracy by Dr. I.D.E. Thomas, game changer. And I got my honorary doctorate from Dr. I.D.E. Thomas, and that book changed my life. There's no doubt about it.
And sorry, you just said there your doctorate is in?
It's in Doctor of Divinity. Basically biblical studies.
So what age was it when you took that the study to do your doctorate in?
I received that in, I think, 2000, and my wife would know, 2004, 2005, right around in there. And it was a very momentous occasion for us because, my mentor, Dr. I.D.E. Thomas, was officiated at the ceremony. So it was quite amazing. And since then, the Nephilim Trilogy was already in play, but we've taken his work. I would like to think that we've taken his work and just expanded it. If you were alive, and he passed away a number of years ago, 2014, if he were alive today, I think he'd be blown away. Because now we have this whole film series on the trail of the Nephilim. And there are 7 parts to that. And then, of course, our Watchmen Chronicles are 3 films in that one. And that we're redoing, or we've just re-released UFO Disclosure, The Coming Great Deception of Luciferian Endgame. And that's free. You can watch it by going to my website, L.A. Marzulli. It's an hour long, and it will blow your mind. I was just on a show with David Zublik here in the States about an hour ago, and David said, I quote him, he said, the film is incredibly well done. The cinematography, the editing, the music, it's state of the art. I would like to think it's state of the art. So you can watch it for free. We offered it for free because we want to get the word out, because the mainstream media is now talking about UFOs, UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. So it's time, and that's why I went back and re-edited it.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, and the Watchmen Chronicles, that's available for free. Those films are free on your YouTube channel, or would people just go to your website to see that? I mean, we'll link the YouTube channel in the description below.
Yeah, they have to go. They have to pay for everything except the Watchmen Chronicles, UFO Disclosure. That's free, but you can download and watch because over in the UK you're not going to buy a DVD, but you can stream it. You can stream all those films for about $3 to $4 a piece and binge watch them all.
Absolutely. So, no, great editing on the what's it called? Let's have a look. Yes, the UFO Disclosure. I'm can't see my notes here. Oh, there it is. UFO Disclosure: The Great Coming, Deception, and Lucifer Endgame. And that was released, I think, on your YouTube channel on the 24th of May. And yeah, I think you said prior to coming on here that you're the one that's editing most of these docs. So good
Yeah,
job.
I'm it.
Wow, 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 wow. That's a lot of work.
A
um,
lot of
okay, so let's just get into it a bit here. So now you're not accredited as any. What you don't have a degree. You're not a. I can't even think of the word right now. But you're not an archaeologist, for example, are you?
No, I'm
No.
not.
Okay, so you're tying in research that you're doing into a religious context. Would you say? I mean, is that fair to say? Do you think?
Well, with the mound builders, my entire life is seen through the lens of the Christian worldview. The guidebook of the supernatural, what many people call the Bible, is actually a guidebook to the supernatural. That's what it is. If you were to take the supernatural events out of that, there'd be nothing left. So I work with archaeologists, anthropologists, and I've been doing this for years. We have a team of people. We have two archaeologists on the team, one of which also is an anthropologist, and and I've learned a lot. I've learned a whole lot in the last 7 8 years of doing this, but we've got two professional accredited archaeologists on our team. So if I don't know something, I try to find an expert. For instance, we're examining metal right now. Well, a good friend of mine, Christian Weidner, has got the sample. He's a metallurgist, and so we hand it off to him. My model is sort of might sound funny, but I remember hearing this as a kid, and how certain things stick with you. You know what I mean? Somebody will say something, and all of a sudden it resonates with you in a way that you're kind of going, "Why is this resonating with me? Why is this? Why did what I just heard? Why I know it's important, but I don't know why yet." And I heard this as a child. My father was talking about one of General Eisenhower's greatest attributes was his ability to disseminate tasks. He would look at this and he would find someone who was good at that and give it to them to do. So Eisenhower, even though he was hands-on, learned to, utilize the people around him. Well, Mondo Gonzalez is our lead archaeologist. Mondo and I have been to Peru numerous times, and Mondo has taught me a lot about archaeology. Rick Woodward is our lead anthropologist and our second archaeologist on our team. And it was Rick Woodward who talked about the placement of the foramen magnum on the Paracas skulls, which changes the equation. These are not cradle headboard and cranial deformation. These are genetic. And we talked about this in depth in our sixth film in On the Trail of the Nephilim, DNA, the Final Results. And our team was the only team, in spite of what other people have said, to the best of my knowledge, we're the only team who have ever taken all the elongated skulls and actually did DNA testing on them.
And what were the results of that DNA testing?
It showed that the mitochondrial DNA, which comes from the female mother side, maternal side of the equation, many of them showed a Middle Eastern or European haplogroup. That rewrites history. Well, the powers that be, the Peruvian government, the academics here, the archaeologists, don't like that. Well, and they immediately go, it's contaminated. Well, our rebuttal to that was, well, if it's contaminated, why didn't we get nuclear DNA? We didn't get nuclear DNA. It wasn't contaminated. You guys just don't like the results. And we took multiple samples. We had 18 skulls. Out of the 18 skulls, we took 58 samples. Out of the 58 samples, about 30 of them sequenced. out of that, numerous ones pointed to a Middle Eastern or European haplogroup. It rewrites history. It shows that these enigmatic skulls did not originate in Peru. Moreover, the morphological, structural differences of the skulls are genetic aberrations. They're not the result of cranial deformation, cradle head boarding. When you take an infant, you bind the head, and then you produce a cone head or whatever. And we prove that in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about this subject to be able to say from an opposing point of view, do you know what I mean? How to oppose that, because I know, it's just not my field, and I don't have anyone with me right now to say the opposite. So I'm just going on what you're saying and the research that you've done. I mean, it all sounds fantastic, but yeah, I'm sure if someone else was joining us on this conversation from, regular archaeology that may know what we're talking about here or what you're discussing, that they may have a different viewpoint, right?
Oh, they would absolutely have a different viewpoint. And I'll go toe to toe with anyone. Look, we went where the science went. In other words, I have a hypothesis, which some people will go, well, that's a religious hypothesis, LA. We can't go with it. No, it's a scientific hypothesis, which is this, that during the conquest of Canaan, 3,500 years ago, or the conquest of the Promised Land, there were indigenous people there, different tribes known as the Nephilim, the Zanzumim, the Nephilim, the Rephaim, the Emims, the Horites. All of these names point to different Nephilim tribes. And our hypothesis was that when Joshua and Caleb went in, there was a diaspora. They fled the Promised Land. Well, here's, for instance, we have an archaeological stele, which we talk about in our 7th film in the series, Lost Civilization. That stele is found in North Africa, and it's stele is a column of rock. This thing's been chiseled into the stone, so literally it is etched in stone. Okay, and it says, "We are they who fled Joshua the robber, the son of Nun, or the son of Nun. We are they who fled Joshua the robber, the son of Nun." Now I'm not making this stuff up. What's that stele doing on the shores of North Africa? So, we can quibble about things. You see, in academia, people and archaeology, if you want money for a dig, you toe the party line. If you're an academic, you toe the party line, which is a Darwinian paradigm. There's no doubt about that. I'm not making this up. And, the Peruvian government didn't like our results because guess what? These enigmatic cone heads, elongated skulls, are not from Peru. They don't like that. And I understand why. And the labs in the United States didn't like that because they were aberrant. And it rewrites history. It rewrites history.
Well, okay, let's just go for people who don't know about the Nephilim, right? Because I know we've got limited time here, right? And you can speak for hours. You're so passionate about what you're doing. I love your energy, right? But let's just go to the Nephilim. So the Nephilim, they were the fallen angels, would you say?
No, well, there's different opinions on that. My view is this, that the fallen angels, the watchers in particular, see, when you say fallen angel, people go, oh, here we go with the fallen angel stuff. Angel just means messenger. We are looking at entities that can manipulate space, time, matter, and energy. They are powerful. They are interdimensional beings who have the power to shapeshift. Metis Monosai, thank you, Restizdar. They can shapeshift and appear as anything that they want to. So one class of these entities are called watchers. So these watchers come down. They take wives, human women, and they mate with them, which creates a hybrid entity known as the Nephilim. That the Nephilim are the progeny of the watchers and the women of Earth. That's what they are.
Okay, forget the Nephilim right now. So that you're saying that the Watchers is where the Nephilim came from. Who are the Watchers?
The Watchers, you would call them fallen angels. But again, when you say angel, people go click and they turn off. When I say Watchers, this entity known as the Watchers, that name has a lot of implications to it. And these are the Watchers. And they are powerful entities. And they come down on Mount Hermon thousands of years ago and take wives. This is in the biblical account. You can go to Genesis chapter 6 and read it for yourself.
So the Watchers took the wives, but I thought the Nephilim took the wives.
No, the Nephilim are the progeny. The Nephilim are the offspring of the Watchers and the women coming together.
Well, they're not ET. You're not saying that. You're saying that. What are you saying? You're saying they're beyond that?
Well, there's two schools of thought, and when you get into the whole UFO phenomenon, there are those who say these are extraterrestrials, but Jacques Vallée and J. Allen Hynek, as well as others, have postulated that I think what they are interdimensional entities. Interdimensional entities. So now we're into a whole different realm. If they're not from Zeta Reticuli, then where are they from? And whoever these entities are, they come in, they come out. They manipulate space, time, matter, and energy in ways that defy our physics. They do things. They abduct people. They float them through the window, and the window is closed. Well, we all know that that's physically impossible, but they do it, and they do it all the time. So these entities are very powerful. They have a nefarious agenda, in my opinion. They lie and do so habitually. They abduct 5 years old and implant them, and they are engaged in creating hybrid entities. And all of this is, our films, in their own words, or I should say, disclosure, The Coming Great Deception. Well, the On the Trail of a Nephilim series, it all goes like this, Kevin. It all dovetails together. All of my work dovetails together, because the Nephilim and the UFO phenomena do dovetail together. What happened in antiquity is repeating itself in modernity, to put it bluntly.
Yeah, I'm just finding it difficult to summarize what the Watchmen are, because obviously I guess you're hypothesizing that they exist, and you're using the word Watchman for something that we don't really understand. But you're saying that it went from the Watchmen to the Nephilim, but then where's the Nephilim now? Because after the Great Flood, from what I understand, the Nephilim were wiped out.
And there's a new book that I just released this year. It's called Countermove: How the Nephilim Returned After the Flood. And it talks about that in great detail, with great specificity. When you come over to the mound builders, all right, giant skeletons were exhumed in these mounds. Those are the remnants of the second incursion. When you look at the conquest of Canaan, and we go back to the biblical narrative, we know that whoever is in that promised land, there were giants there. There's no doubt about it. Goliath certainly was a giant, I believe about 12 feet tall. So the giants are still here. The Nephilim are still here. We know from the Numbers 13 account, which is just an address. Numbers is a book in the Bible. 13 is the chapter. So when I say Numbers 13, there's nothing woo-woo about it. It's an address. It's like saying, hey, turn to chapter 10 of Moby Dick. It's the same thing. You're going to Numbers, the book, chapter 13, and there it says, we saw the Nephilim there, and we were like grasshoppers in their sight.
So when you say the Nephilim are still here, you're referring to the
second
spiritual aspect of them are still here, and they're incarnated in what form?
No, they are physical. They're in other words, it's a second incursion.
A second wave of.
Absolutely. And that's what the newest book, Countermove, is all about. We get into Countermove, how the Nephilim returned after the flood. That's what we get into in that book. And that book was very difficult to write, by the way.
No, I can imagine. So we talk about, the Nephilim were the byproduct of the Watchmen mating with the women at the time. But if there's a second wave of them coming back, how did they leave the planet before they were wiped out in the first place? Did the Watchmen take some of them off?
No, that's a possibility, but I don't think so. I'll tell you the story because I think it's interesting. A number of years ago, I was reading this book, and in that book, it postulated that the Nephilim returned after the flood because Ham's wife, remember, you got Noah, and then you got Noah's 3 sons. So Ham's wife carried the Nephilim gene. Well, I never bought that for a minute. I didn't believe it. I thought it impugns God's character. So let me get this straight. God wipes out the entire planet except for 8 people, and he allows someone with the Nephilim gene on board the ark. Not buying it. So I'm laying in bed, and the Spirit of a living God begins to speak to me. And he says, what happened at the end of World War II? And I say, I have no idea. And he says, and all this is happening, nonverbal communication, but it's happening. And he goes, well, what did the Japanese do at the end of World War II? And I'm going like, I don't know. And basically, the Spirit of a living God said, they created kamikaze pilots. They knew that the war was lost. And in a desperate act, these men gave up their lives. They would take an airplane, fill the plane with explosives, and dive into the ships in hope of turning the tide of the war. Then the Lord says, now go to the book of Enoch. And I know that scripture by heart. The 200 watcher angels have descended on Mount Hermon in the time period where this guy Jared is still alive. That's how they mark it. In the days of Jared, 200 watcher angels descended on Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is still in existence. You can go there today. And it says this, there was a leader of the watcher angels. And this leader was called Shemyaza. All right? You can pronounce it a lot of different ways. And Shemyaza says, I fear that ye will agree not to do this thing, and I alone will bear the penalty of this great sin. Then all 200 watcher angels created an oath to go do this thing, knowing full well the penalty that they were going to receive. Essentially, Kevin, it's a suicide mission. They do it because it's the only shot that they have. So why are they doing this? They're trying to contaminate the genome of human beings. And they succeed in doing that, except for the 8 people on board the ark. They almost succeed. Why are they doing this? Because they know someone will come from the seed of the woman who will crush the dragon's head and take the dragon's kingdom away from him. How do I know that? Because in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, it says that you, pointing of a dragon, your seed, your offspring, will be at war, at enmity, with the seed, the offspring of the woman. He, the offspring coming from the woman, will crush your head, you will bruise his heel. They know what's going to happen. They have one shot. Destroy the line, destroy the bloodline, destroy the genome. And then this guy that's going to come, the Messiah that's going to come and crush my head, will not be born. We win. Planet Earth is mine. Everybody goes home. Game over. But that's not what happens. And so the 200 watcher angels descend in the days of Jared, and they take wives and they contaminate the genome, except for 8 people. And this is why we wrote Countermove. So guess what happens after the flood? Another group of watcher angels come down and do exactly the same thing. The first group are paying the penalty. They're bound, and they're in a place called Tartarus. And we get into all of this in the book Countermove, How the Nephilim Returned After the Flood. We could talk the rest of the night about that. And we have time for
with the mounds, right? You've been all over the world. Stone structures that we could barely replicate today with modern day technology, right? With the precision that they were back in the day when mathematics and just feeding people, just the infrastructure to make these things. How could that have been possible with sheer manpower? Okay, back in the day, and with the giants, your hypothesis is, I suppose, that there were 12 foot or larger beings, or that were on the planet back then, that were maybe had advanced technology to create such structures. And just tell me if I'm going off course here once I finish speaking. But where is the actual bones, the fossils of these giants that have been dug out? Where is an actual piece of evidence?
An actual piece of evidence is my work on Catalina Island. We're one of the few people that discovered a photograph, which I was never supposed to see. In other words, the backstory to that is there's an archaeologist, quote, he was kind of like I am. He knew enough about it just to get in trouble, but he wasn't agreed. But, you hang out and you learn the techniques and you learn what to do and you learn the different errors and how, you learn it. So he was employed, his name was Ralph Glidden. He was employed by the Hay Museum to go out and conduct primitive archaeological digs on the Channel Islands. The Channel Islands are from on the west coast of the United States, from Santa Barbara down to San Diego, a group of islands. So he's out there circa 1919 to 1921, and he's conducting primitive archaeological digs. Well, he's taking photographs. Well, most of the records go missing. They go missing for like 50 years. Enter a friend of mine who gives me the heads up that they found this cache of records and you can go out and see them maybe. So I email the head of the museum. He says no. And I get wind of, once again, from my friend that they're building a new museum, maybe offer a contribution. So I offer $1,000 contribution. Come right out, Mr. Marzulli. So there I am in the museum, in the back room, the vault. Everything's already put in museum boxes. It's all been cataloged, picked through, and they start bringing out, they ask me, what do you want to see? I go, I want to see the pictures. So they bring out the pictures. These are all from 1919 to 1921, all right? So they're, 100 years old now. And I'm handling with white gloves on these pictures. They've all been put in folders, manila envelopes. And I'm there for I spent time in the archives. A lot of time you can spend days there and not find anything, right? Within an hour, I'm hitting pay dirt. I'm finding 6-fingered skeletons, elongated skulls. And then there's a picture of Ralph Glidden holding a shovel, standing in a recently excavated grave. And in front of him is a giant skeleton. I had 3 different researchers look at that picture. I took a picture of the picture. So it's not photoshopped in any way. There's the original 5x7 black and white. Marzulli goes in. I take the picture. I send that picture to 3 different researchers. They look at it. They dissect that picture, all of them. And there's no collusion between the 3 of them. All of them put that picture, that skeleton in there at 9 feet. Well, that rewrites history. That rewrites history. And that's just one. We've got other proof coming from medical doctors at the turn of the 19th and the 20th century, where the mounds were being exhumed in the United States, and they were finding 8, 10, 12 footers in these mounds. So I've got the picture of one, which was a 9-footer, but there's the oral tradition of not only of Native Americans, but of medical professionals from the last century that had encounters with these things.
Yes, absolutely there is. And where is that original picture now, do you think?
Hidden away in the archives in Catalina. Last time I was there, which was several years back, they had taken the picture and blew it up. It was like 3 feet, let's say, wide by 4 feet long. They really big. And they left the giant in the picture, which the time before that, they cropped the giant out of the picture. But they still don't say anything about what you're looking at.
Right. Where do you think any of these remains are now?
They didn't get them all. We still believe that there are remains somewhere. In Ecuador, Peru, the United States. We have a line on something in an undisclosed location. There's a crypt, and we're trying to get access to the crypt, where allegedly was a 12-footer.
Okay. Interesting. So, okay, let's just go straight to the UFO disclosure, the Great Coming, deception. With what is the deception, do you think? What are they trying to deceive us off, if that is the case?
Well, I mean, you call yourself a student of, let's say, the arcane or the supernatural, someone who's got spiritual inclinations, all right? So my first question to you would be, where are we in the universe, and what are we, and are we the product of mindless evolution, or is there a creator? That would be my first question to someone like you. And so that's a rhetorical question. I won't embarrass you. You don't have to answer it. Obviously, you're the interviewer.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm not embarrassed. No, no, no. Uh, yes, of course, I do believe that there is um, uh, something undescribable, but we have to put words on it so that we can have a conversation. But if you want to use the word God, I'm okay with that. Yeah, there's some sort of prime source somewhere. Yes, there's something behind the amazingness, isn't there, of just being a human being and having this conscious experience that me and you are having right now. But it originated from somewhere. But then where did that? If we are the byproducts of something that genetically altered us, it had to start somewhere. Do you know what I mean?
And that's the conundrum. In other words, with a finite mind, I can't possibly conceive of an infinite God that spoke everything into existence. It's very difficult for me to get my head around it, even now as a Christian after 41 years.
Well, we'll look at the infinite universe that's continuing to expand. I mean, how do you get your head around the infiniteness of it? I mean, I can't even imagine infiniteness, that it goes on forever. Can you?
No, I can't. And so, but the evolutionist, which differs from our particular worldview, even though our worldview perhaps differs slightly in belief system, which is fine. But the evolutionist doesn't believe in any of that. They believe in the idea of the Big Bang. They're not sure where that started from. Doesn't matter. But we're the byproduct of billions of years of mindless evolution, just over and over and over again. Well, where does the reproduction system in a human being? How does that work? And how does that evolve over billions of years? I mean, chicken or the egg type thing, right? So the coming great deception is this. Because science and the academic community believe and embrace the Darwinian paradigm, which essentially states there is no supernatural, there is no God, there are no moral absolutes, there are no ultimate truths, there are no right or wrong, good or evil, up or down, there is no heaven or hell, there is no afterlife, there's just here we are, and it's mindless, and it doesn't matter. And if you're an ardent evolutionist, that's the paradigm that you basically hold on to. So they are looking for our creators. They are looking for some kind of answer because they now know. Charlie Darwin didn't know anything about the double helix of life, the deoxyribonucleic acid, double helix, the spiral of life, the DNA molecular structure. He didn't know about that. It wasn't discovered till Watson and Crick discovered it in the 60s, I believe. So Watson and Crick discovered this thing. Crick is a vexed man because he's looking at the complexities of the DNA molecular structure and going, this complex code just didn't fall out of the sky. Somebody created this somewhere. And the modern day neo-Darwinist is looking out there, the idea of panspermia, that we were seated here and, the extraterrestrial, in fact, are our progenitors. That theory has been promulgated for the last 10 years or longer on the Ancient Aliens film series every Friday night on the History Channel. That's what they say. Ancient astronaut theorists, that's what they talk about constantly. We say, no, we don't believe that. We don't believe that we were seated here. We believe that the God of the Bible spoke everything into existence. So either way, it's a leap of faith because they don't know. And the Christian really doesn't know. It's a leap of faith. You either believe that we were seated here, or you believe that this God, whoever he is, spoke everything into existence, which is what the supernatural book, the guidebook of the supernatural, i.e. the Bible, tells us very explicitly. He spoke everything into existence. He was before all things. Think about that. He, Jesus, was before all things, and he holds all things together. Which is just, I don't understand that. That's mind-numbing to me. But that's what it states. And because of the prophetic narrative from Genesis to Revelation, and those prophecies which are written, thousands of years in some cases ahead of of their fulfillment, something's going on with that. And that's the only book like it on the planet.
Okay, but what is the great coming deception then? Deception from these intelligent, well, the intelligence behind whatever this UFO subject is. But what is the deception? Deceiving us from what?
The deception will be so-called ET, will tell us that they created all life on this planet. They genetically manipulated early man. They started the world's civilizations. They started the world's religions. Now, at this critical juncture, they are back to usher mankind into a golden age. Interestingly enough, about 2 weeks ago, former President Barack Hussein Obama stated that when the aliens show up, his words, not mine, that they will, we will have new religions because of this, which is something that I've been warning against for decades. So he's already hinting at it. This is the coming great deception. It is the Luciferian endgame, and it dovetails precisely into the book of Revelation, which talks about a one-world religious system and a one-world government. I mean, it says that. That's written 2,000 years ago, Kevin, and yet we see it forming right in front of our eyes. That's got to blow your mind. That was written 2,000 years ago in the guidebook of the supernatural, and now it's formatting right in front of us.
Well, what if there was a one world government? I mean, what would be the issue with that?
Well, the issue would be, it certainly wouldn't be what the United States has as a democracy. Actually, it's a republic. We wouldn't see that. We would have a group of elites ruling the entire planet, and so, which is what they want anyway. So you'd have a two-class system. You'd have the elites, and then you'd have everybody equally yoked underneath them. It will, according to the prophetic literature that I've read, it will be very draconian. If we think COVID-19 was draconian, wait till this thing happens. It'll be very, very restrictive, extremely so.
And what if that was not the case at all? Then actually, if ever there was any contact on a mass scale with something that's not from here, and they actually had a hand in pushing us forward in our evolution genetically, what if that was the truth?
Well, I mean, that's a $64,000 question. Each person has to arrive at that juncture, and based on what they know and what they believe, they have to make a decision. This is why I do call it the coming great deception. And it's very simple. Either we believe in the guidebook of the supernatural, and the prophecies that are written a priori, hundreds of them, written far in advance of their fulfillment, or we just toss that out the window and believe what these entities tell us, that they created all life on this planet. So it's one or the other. You can't have both.
What if they say that they didn't, and they're just, peaceful observers? They've gone beyond religion, they've gone beyond spirituality, and they've come to another understanding.
Well, and that's a great question. That's a great hypothetical question. But why should I take their word for it? What can you show me that would give me proof that what you're telling me is the truth and not some sort of deception? So I've got a book called the Bible, which I prefer to call the guidebook of the supernatural, because when you say Bible, it immediately shuts people off. They just do that. They don't want to hear about it. They think they know what's in it, but they've never read it. They have no idea what's in it, and they certainly have never plumbed the depths of it. I've been doing this for 41 years, and I know I'm like a kid in a candy store. It's like different layers. There's just no end to it. It's mind-boggling. But unlike what ET would say if they showed up, we've got the thread of prophecy from Genesis to Revelation, which is telling me, and I'm not being religious here, just I'm looking at this strictly through an academic perspective. Something is going on with this prophetic literature, which defies my rationale. Somebody something, someone is outside space-time as we know it, and somehow these entities, or this entity, as I believe, is calling out the future with great specificity. How the heck is that possible? How the heck is that possible?
Well, I mean, what if when we cross over, which we're all going to do, and what if the truth of what we think all this is so much greater than we could even imagine, because our human minds aren't able to, you know, aren't spiritually able, or just are not able to perceive such understandings of what this really is, that it's nothing or anything that we've even covered in this conversation, because we were never meant to know. But actually what this is not what we even think it is, and anything at the level that we're at right now is just the level that we're at right now, because whatever the answer is, it wasn't going to expose itself as such, because we need to get on with what we're doing right now, whatever that turns us on to do.
Well, and that's a very fair statement, and I respect that. None of us look. I was taken twice by him for 3 seconds each time, very quickly, up and down, in the body, out of the body, can't tell you. And what I saw were, in both cases, glimpses of the future, but that future ties into the biblical prophetic narrative. But I was there. In both instances, I was there, and it was mind-boggling, mind-blowing. In the first one, which happened 41 years ago, I was on a white horse. I was holding the horse's manes. There was no bridle, no saddle. I was in a great throng of riders, and I've never read this before. I had no idea where I was, and this throng was in a horseshoe shape, like this. Right, so a horseshoe. And this army, this throng of riders, was stacked like an apartment building, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And a horseshoe, it just wasn't one ring of riders. It was, if you were on the first level, there were hundreds in that ring, but they were all staggered. And in the middle of that horseshoe was the rider on the white horse. And we were flying down like this. So second one, I'm holding on to the manes. That's where I am. And I look to my left. There's this huge army. We're riding down. There's the rider on the white horse. All eyes can see him. And then I look back, and I'm on the right side, not all the way on the top, on the right flank someplace, about midway up, maybe a little higher than that. I'm about 8 rows back from the front. The guys in the front are really powerful, much taller than a normal human being. I have no idea what I've just seen. Well, that's because I hadn't read Revelation 19. And I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse, whose rider is faithful and true. With justice he judges and makes war. His eyes are like flaming fire, and on his head are many crowns. He has a name written on him that no one but he himself knows. He is dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and he is called the Word of God. Here's the proof text. Riding with him on white horses were the armies of heaven, dressed in white linen, clean and white, in fine white linen, clean and white. I mean, I had never read that. When I finally got to that, I just went, oh my gosh, I was there. He took me and he showed me the future, and I was in that army. I mean, you can't make that stuff up. You just can't, especially if you've never read it and you have no idea what it is that you're reading, or that where you were. I remember going to my pastor a couple of days after that and said, hey, I had this vision, but it really wasn't a vision. I was there. And he said, well, what was it? And I told him, and his jaw dropped. And he said, have you ever read this? And he opened up the guidebook of the supernatural, i.e. the Bible, and turned to Revelation chapter 19. And there it was. That's future, Kevin. That's future. But I was there in the future, and I saw it. And I was actively participating in that writing down.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, God, do we see the things that we need to see for what we're here to do, and then get beyond that level, or not even level, just but get to a point where you're crossing over, and it's just something so different when to what we thought it was. But that's also okay as well. But you could say to yourself, well, what was the point if that was the case? But I don't think that's even I just don't even if you can even answer, even ask that question. I suppose it's just, I don't know. I always feel that what we think we know is just a grain of sand on an infinite beach, and it's not what we think it is, and it's not. It's it's almost like we are the gods, and we're creating this, and maybe we can create anything beyond this level. This is just where we're at right now because this is what we wanted. I don't know. But it's interesting. And what if there is no, in your lifetime, there is no disclosure?
Well, we've already had disclosure. The United States government came out and said
Sure,
that
sure.
under that
I just mean, on the level of, fourth and fifth, sixth kind of, contact.
well, I think we're ramping up to it. I'm not a date setter, and I have no idea when it's actually going to happen. But I think it'd be very interesting to see what we see at the end of this month when Congress looks at their report. I think it'll be the Texas two-step. There'll be a lot of nonsense in it, a lot of redacted stuff. At some point, we're going to have film, and that'll be a game changer. We actually already do have film. We show it in my film. It's a Kumburgaz UFO film taken by the late Dr. Roger Lear in Kumburgaz, Turkey. That is the best UFO footage I've ever seen, hands down, including the gray aliens in it. So, and that's not a hoax. Absolutely not a hoax. That's the real thing.
No, I mean, I guess for some people as well, they're just trying to get on with day-to-day life. Do you know what I mean? With the issues that presents, and whatever challenges that one is meeting. And for some people, that's enough. This is not in their reality.
Well, it's going to be in their reality very soon, but because they're rolling it out, and they can people can try to tap dance around this, but we have to ask ourselves a question. How does Kevin Moore deal with a mile-wide craft parked over some site in the UK that sits there and hovers? What do you do with that information? And that's why our film, Disclosure, The Coming Great Deception, and the Luciferian Endgame, we present what we believe is real evidence. Not only that,
But do you think if you were religiously, ahead of our timeline, and that you was a sort of caring, loving species, you're not just gonna, park a mile wide craft and scare people. That wouldn't be very loving, would it?
well, it's also not loving to take a 5-year-old boy and implant them against their parents' will. It's also unloving to take people against their will, to float them onto a metal table, and to perform absurd so-called medical experimentation on them. The men, sperm is taken from the men, ovum is taken from the women, and we've had this.
Yes, but then some of the most famous cases, even have turned around and said, you know what, as time's gone by, I've come to realize that actually they may have been there to help me. It may not have been the Hollywood portrayal of my story that I once told. And actually, I've come to a different understanding of it, and it may be something completely different and opposing to what you've just said there.
Yeah, and we call that the Stockholm syndrome, with all due respect, but that's what we call it. We call it the Stockholm syndrome, where someone like Whitley Strieber, when he was first taken, he's talking about the fear level is so great that he can't even deal with it. He's terrified. Well, why is it that you get guys like Jacques Vallée, J. Allen Hynek, some of the pioneers of all this, who were saying Jacques Vallée's book Messengers of Deception,
Yes, but pioneers at the level we understand right now, not pioneers in 100 or 200 years' time, pioneers right now at the level we understand. Yes, they may be
Okay,
the top of the field, but come, centuries times, they are, it was a lower understanding of what we would know then.
okay, let me just ask you this, and I ask this question to UFO meeting groups. How many think it's okay to abduct a 5-year-old
I,
and implant
yeah, if that story is true,
it because it is true because we extracted the implant?
if it was true, um, I'm not able to understand what the bigger picture of why they did that. If there was a greater understanding of that, then that would have to be looked at. But at the base level, it's ununderstandable. If that is true, um, without any understanding of where they're coming from or what their connection is to that young person, you can't answer that. Yes, at the basic level, it's all wrong. But what if
Okay,
there was a much bigger picture to it?
but see that is always the escape clause, that there may be a much bigger
Well,
picture.
we
And
don't know, do we? We don't know. It's easy to say no, that's wrong, and yes, on this level, of course it is. But I ain't got a Scooby Doo of their intention or what they were trying to do or their connection to that family or that soul level or whatever. I have no understanding, nor of you, nor has anyone else. And if they're not
but
going to come forward to say that, then yes, on a base level, of course we would call that wrong.
I totally appreciate what you're saying. But let's go back to your initial response. Your basic understanding, your gut level, based on you as a human being and me as a human being, this is wrong on so many levels. So one would think, and again, I'm taking liberty here, that these entities, if they're that smart to come from whatever planet, surely they would know that the people that they're taking are absolutely terrified. Why is it then that they seem to actually live off the fear? They're inducing the fear and they're living off the fear. How do I know this? Because I've talked to people, multiple people who have been abducted multiple times, and this is what they've told me.
Yeah.
So it's second-hand information, but it's from real life abductees.
Yes, and we weren't there. That was their experience, and it's true to them. And who knows what's really going on? Yes, anyone could agree with what you're saying there, but we don't understand the ununderstandable, right? Because we're not at that level, and there's something much greater going on. That I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. It's like trying to understand how the universe came into being with God just speaking it in. It's ununderstandable. But if we were thousands of years ahead of where maybe they are, maybe there's something else going on.
And my retort to that is, if there was, why are they doing? And this is what Jacques Vallée and J.L. Koenig say, that why are they doing these same goofy so-called medical experiments over and over and over
If
again? Well,
that's what it is, if that's
yeah,
even what it is.
it's not. What it really is, they're creating a hybrid being. That's what they're creating. They're creating a hybrid, half human, half alien, if you will. How do I know this? The work of Dr. Jacobs, the work of my own research, talking to people who have been abducted, people that have encountered hybrids. So what's interesting is this is precisely what happened in the days of Noah. Are these hybrid beings circling back to the Nephilim? In my opinion, they are modern day Nephilim walking amongst us. That's what they are. They're hybrid entities.
Well, maybe we need a few more of them to bring some peace to this planet because we're not
I
doing a
think
very good job ourselves.
it might be nice, but I don't think we're going to see that.
No, but it's got to start somewhere, and maybe it starts with us. Maybe we can't change the world, but we can change our attitude to ourselves and other people and start there.
Well, that's the whole deal, isn't it? I mean, that's the golden rule: love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah, but
Which
we
is,
can't even do that, some of us.
That's my point. That's very difficult. That's very difficult to actually walk and make happen.
And that's how basic of a level that we're at, and we're trying to talk about and decipher things that for maybe sentient beings that are way beyond the base level that we're at, way beyond, and can easily do that which we just discussed there, being loving to ourselves and to others, and that's the level that
Ask
yeah.
something. Instead of abducting thousands and thousands of people and implanting them against their will, why not give us the cure to cancer? I mean, surely a sentient being would look at the disease that human beings have and go, well, maybe if we're really peaceful and benevolent, maybe we'll give this lesser race the cure to cancer, the cure. But that's not what happens. It's over and over and over again, fear, torture. What about the human mutilations that happens?
Maybe
So
maybe some things are not curable as we think they are. We think we're going to progress to this level of curability. Maybe there's something else going on there.
come on. I mean, cancer comes from no one knows where, and we have cures for some cancer.
Yes, we do. But
We do. So
I'm just putting the
benevolent. Why not give us free energy? Why not do something for us instead of performing the same barbaric anal probes in people that you have done?
That sounds so South Park when you say that. But
But
well,
it's true.
why not? Well, who knows? I mean, who knows what that bigger reason is? But we've not done bad on ourselves, have we? I mean, with technologically wise, we have progressed massively, and maybe it's for us to get there ourselves. If we're going to be given everything, would we totally appreciate it in time to come? I don't know. If we meet something at the level that it's taken us to get to, maybe it's a different perspective. Maybe maybe it's perfect. Where we're at in some perspective, because for some deeper reason that we don't understand and can't answer the question you're asking, this is so. As a soul, we're so desperate to have the experiences that we're having, and to cut that experience short is not helping anything.
Well, we're talking. I'm going to circle back into the prophecy because we're talking, and we could talk like this, you and I, for hours and go around. How do you, as a human being, if I tell you that there's a thread of prophecy from Genesis to Revelation, and I start giving you a list of those prophecies, how do you account for those? Who's the author behind that prophecy?
Oh well,
How
yeah,
is
well, yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, who is the author behind those prophecies? Exactly.
but
Yeah.
let me ask you this. If the author of the prophecy is telling you exactly who he is, would you believe him?
If it's coming, if it okay for me, if it's coming from fear, nah. I no, because I'm still trying to learn to love myself. I'm still trying to get over my divorce. I'm still trying to manifest the things that I want to manifest in my life, and I'm still trying to say to myself, you know what would I like this reality to be? What would I like to see more in the world? You know what? I'm going to go out there and do those things that I'd like the world that I'd like to see become by just me becoming that person and doing those things.
More power to you.
Yeah, I'm not going to live in fear with the prophecies out there and all that, and start bunking
But
up
we're
on
not.
food and all that kind of stuff. Whatever's going to be is going to be. And I think there's some things in our lifetime that there are certain things that we're meant to experience, and we can't get away from those experiences. So whatever's going to be is going to be. But how did I live my life? And when I know better, can I do better?
And I respect that answer, but I'll circle back again. If I were to tell you that there are prophecies, let's say about the coming Messiah, about his death, about the rebirth of the nation of Israel, which is one that's in our lifetime that we've seen. I mean, that goes against all odds. And it says, I will regather you from the four corners of the earth and reestablish you in your ancient homeland, never to be driven out again. And we know from as a student of history that Hitler went after the Jews for one reason, because he was an occult adept. He was part of the dragon's kingdom, and he knew that if he could wipe every Jew off the face of the planet, that prophecy would not unfold. Therefore, let me finish. Therefore, follow me because God's a liar. But that's not what happened.
Yeah, I'm sure that when some people wrote these great texts in these books, there was also, it's coming through man, it's coming through the, the issues that human beings got at the time when they're putting this information down. I'm sure it's been changed over time just to to suit different time periods. But God, I suppose it's if they're foreseeing, if they're bringing this information through themselves into a book, and that's their take on what they think is a potential coming this way to mankind, was it the complete truth? Was it parts of the truth, or is it potentials mixed in with all that? Well, I can't answer any of that. I'm just living my life, and and
you always circle back to that, and it's academic. I mean, it really is. You've got someone outside space and time writing something that's thousands of years old, and now we see it fulfilled in our lifetime, the rebirth of the nation of Israel. And we can go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we can see that prophecy is there. So it hasn't changed. No one believed it for hundreds of years until all of a sudden, 1948, Israel becomes a nation. That's astounding. Absolutely astounding.
Well, I mean, yeah, I can't answer any of these questions. I mean, if it's all going to be doom and gloom, and it's the end of the world and all that kind of stuff, and it's me against, us against them, or something like that, that's great. If that's the way it turns out, that's fine. But maybe there's another way.
Well, we'll see. All I know is that there is evil in the world.
Sure, of course.
The evil has an agenda. It has a face. It has a name. It's being driven, and we are coming up. When you say doom and gloom, it's not doom and gloom. It's the end of this system as we know it, which has.
And that could happen as well, and that can only be a good thing if there was massive change like that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we're all born into this system. Did I choose the system? Did you? No, it's friggin' there when we came into it. Is it the best we've got right now? Probably. Could it be better? Absolutely.
Sure.
But yes, there could be a massive change coming, and
I think we're on the verge of it, Kevin. I really
hopefully,
do.
yeah. I'm all for change. I'm all for change. But as long as and maybe in that change, it's going to be a bit bumpy.
I think it'll be bumpy, but in the end, it'll be good.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We agree on that thing, man. We agree on that thing. Well, no, look, I love you. I think the work you do is great. I love your passion. Do you know that? And when you said that you're 70 years old, wow, you're doing something right, because you do not look it, man. So, I think you're aligned with definitely what you're supposed to be doing, and you've got so much more to put out as well. So, where can people catch you? Just one more time, LA.
Yeah, just go to lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net, and check it out from there. The film is for free. Disclosure: The Coming Great Deception, the Luciferian Endgame. I promise you, your mind will be blown when you see it. It's got, at the very end, we show the Convergaz UFO footage, which in my opinion is the best UFO footage on the planet. You'll see that. It's totally for free. All we're asking you to do is pass it forward.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's a great documentary, guys. I will say that, and it's well worth a watch. You got some great people on there as well. So, well, LA, listen, thank you for your time right now. Thank you for what you're doing as well. I do appreciate being around someone like you as well, because it's enjoyable to have this kind of debate, to be honest with you. So, I hoped our paths will cross one day as well, and all the best with everything you're doing in the future.
All right, my friend. God bless. Take care.